What do we find that the statistics and data reveal as our culture continues to lean away from traditional ideas about God, life, family, marriage, and work?
Um, it's interesting because I was just having a conversation with a colleague earlier this morning and about the changing dynamics around the attitude of cohabitation,
Mm,
or instead of getting married, living together.
mm,
And the data suggests that if you cohabitate before marriage, your chance of divorce goes from 55 to 80%,
mm,
which you would think would be, some people would think it's the opposite. Well, we're going to do a trial first. And
mm.
if we like each other, we'll stay together. And if we don't, we'll move on. Um, that's not how it works. There's a commitment level there,
Mm.
right? I love what
Yeah.
Anne Graham said about Billy Graham. They were married for decades. And Billy was often gone doing ministry.
Mm.
But one of the things, somebody asked her one time, have you and Billy ever, or have you ever thought about divorcing Billy?
Mm.
And she chuckled, and her response was, murder, yes. Divorce, no. So, but it's this level of commitment. And I think when you cohabitate, you're basically having a trial run with somebody else's spouse.
Mm.
And I know people do it. I'm not being judgmental. I'm saying be
Sure.
aware of the influence that your choices have.
Mm.
And so that's a trend that I see, that even when around Christian young people, like cohabitation doesn't seem to be that big a deal.
Mm.
And I get it. It sounds old fashioned, but if you're talking about data shows that those who wait to get married to live together have a less chance of divorce. Now, in America, it's 50-50 no matter what.
Mm.
See,
Mm.
that's a whole nother discussion to have. Why is marriage 50%? In fact, it could even be higher. But the more alarming trend is people aren't getting married.
Sure. Yeah. I think even on that, an interesting point is that the divorce rate, like I've heard people say for Christians is the same, which is true. People call themselves Christians, but that statistics also show that committed Christians going to church, that drops significantly, which makes sense in our culture where every other person might say, oh yeah, I'm Christian, where it's more of just a title, part of, being an American. But when it's a committed church-going Christian in this community of believers, coming back to community again, that drops significantly. Why do you think that is?
For the very reason you said. I mean, the scriptures say that you'll know them by their fruit.
Mm.
The scriptures say that Satan knows the Bible. He doesn't follow it.
Yeah.
And so again, not trying to be judgmental, but the reality is that when people have this idea, I think they call them cultural Christians.
Mm.
Like I had a friend of mine who moved to California from Alabama, and one of his kids told him, man, if you have to really be a Christian in California, because I guess in Alabama, you're a cultural, of course you're a Christian. Your neighbors are Christians, your pets are Christians. I mean, good grief, we're Christians here. But culturally, doesn't mean that you follow the scriptures, that you seek the Lord, that you actively are a part of a church body. And you're right, statistically, when that becomes part of your faith journey, it's amazing. Even things like loneliness and depression go down. Divorce rates plummet. And that's not to say, see, part of that's about expectation. It's, when I was growing up, we'd watch these romantic movies and you thought, man, if I just found the one, I'd be happy the rest of my life. Yes and no. I think more realistically, you have a soulmate to go through the storms of life together with. And there will be times, if you've ever done any kayaking where you're going down the river, sometimes it's a smooth, beautiful, relaxing ride. And then here comes the waterfalls and the currents, and you got to navigate that.
Yeah.
And it's better to navigate it with somebody than alone. But life has a tendency to bring challenges. And if the expectation is that this person that I'm with is going to make my life good for the rest of my life, first of all, it's not a fair expectation to put on them.
Sure.
And second of all, in my experience, that's not how life works.
That makes me think of something else too that St. Augustine said. He said that God has made us for himself, and that our hearts are restless until they find their rest in him. And I think in our cultural moment, in my generation specifically, I think we're seeking to fill this hole within ourselves that really only God can fill. I think that's why relationships are so messed up. I think that's why even the workplace is so messed up. We're trying to fill this with relationships and work and career and ambitions,
Yeah.
but none of it works, which is quite possibly why depression is so high and
That's right.
suicidal ideation is so high. I think that's where it's helpful to think about the story we live according to. That's going to inform what we want and what we pursue, and that's why worldview, like you were saying, is so important.
So important.
And I think, given the Christian story, the Christian worldview, uh, it would make sense that if God has told us to do things a specific way, and we are His design, His creation, then the way He has intended it to be is going to be the way that brings us the most fulfillment, the most joy. I mean, who would have thought that our Creator knows the best way we should live our life, and that's the way that's going to bring us the most pleasure? Who would have thought? You know, God
Who'd have thought?
forbid.